Yo, what's going on everyone? Bill here, Classic Rock and Metal Review for this episode only. I think it'll be an annual thing from now on. Classic Rock and Movie Review for one episode. Summer's over. I can see a sort of pattern here. I'm going to be a lazy bum in the summer. You get hardly no content. I get to relax. I did get some stuff up there, but not as much as usual, as you know. So hopefully that's all going to change. We'll get back to our usual programming. But over the summer, I actually watched 27 movies. So just thought I'd run down them pretty quick. One or two of you were looking forward to an all-movie episode, so here it is. And most of these movies were new to me. I think there were three things that I'd seen before in the past, and I'm going way back with when I say the past, like 30, 40 years, some of these. But most of these were new to me, like I said. So run down them all, give you a grade, either no good, like don't bother, worth a watch. And a lot of us now, if you're in my situation, you got a bunch of streaming channels. They're already paid for, so it's no skin off your teeth. You're not renting it or anything. So a lot of these are worth a watch, but I'll qualify that with what genre you would need to be into to enjoy it. And then a handful that I think are worth owning, because Blu-ray really will do these justice. So really only a few of those. Who needs to own anything anymore? You know, I mean, here and there, yeah, but a lot of stuff really just worth watching. A couple of clunkers, I would say don't bother. So guys, man, it's only 9:30 in the morning. I'm trying to take another shore break, all right? I'm getting over a nasty head cold, I tell you. But this stuff is just foam city, man. I mean, that's how it came out of the can like 3 minutes ago. So just got a shaken up batch, I guess. I'm not sure, but I'll get to that as soon as I can. All right, so let's get into it. 27 movies. Let's run them all down. I put them in chronological order. I'll tell you where I saw them. Some of these just a week or two ago or less, and others going back to late June. 1975's Jaws. By the way, it's 75 to 2024, so we're spanning 40 years with these 27 movies. Last time I saw Jaws, it just popped up on HBO a few weeks ago. So what the hell? Last time I saw it was in the theater, actually. One of these Fathom events, I think. And it wasn't 3D or anything else like that special, just being in a theater, which at the time, 6 or 8 years ago, that was kind of fun, you know? They have a lot more of those events, it seems, lately. But at the time, it was kind of something a little rare. But really cool seeing it on that wide screen after seeing it on TV 100 times in 4:3. Even though widescreen TVs were coming in, a lot of them were still showing it in 4:3, so this was the full widescreen theater experience. Got to see stuff on the periphery of the screen I never noticed before. What else can you say? The movie's fantastic. And I actually saw that movie in 78 when I was 8 years old in the theater. As far as I remember, it was 78. 75, the movie came out, and then they put it back out again, I think the summer of 78. My dad took me when I was 8 years old. Can't believe I was watching that when I was 8, but I was. All right, on to 77, the shirt I'm wearing, the movie Shockwaves. Nazi zombie cult classic. Now, I wanted to see this a month or two ago, a couple months ago now. Searched it on my TV, on my Roku. Tubi had it. Man, I kind of forgot all about Tubi. I had them on my TV, and I think maybe about a year ago, my TV went nuts. I had to reset it back to factory settings. And when I did, I lost a bunch of the apps. And Tubi was one of them. Man, I forgot all about how many damn movies Tubi has. It's free. You watch some commercials here and there, but they're not that bad. And by the way, I had no idea that Nazi zombies were a whole genre of movies. So Tubi led me into a bunch of others, and we'll talk about a few of them in a minute. But I actually saw this back in probably 81. We were lucky enough to have HBO in 1980 when, you know, there was no cable in my area of Philadelphia until 86. But having that special HBO antenna up on the roof, it was a splurge. We were, you know, working class, but my parents sprung for that. So I got to see Shockwaves, you know, on there. And man, I'll never forget that Nazi troop walking across the ocean floor, you know. That was just the baddest scene, you know. It's so cool. Overall, the movie's actually pretty decent. A good thriller. Not so much zombies in that they're flesh eaters. They're just out to kill you. It's kind of cool, though. I like it. They're at an abandoned resort somewhere in the Caribbean. about a dozen people that were on a private cruise. Something happens to the ship, they end up marooned on this private island. Peter Cushing's in it, doesn't have a major role, but he's the sort of star. And it's just a good action thriller. I would recommend this one's worth watching. And I don't think I mentioned, do I even have to say, Jaws is worth owning. All right, on to 1980, Prom Night. Jamie Lee Curtis. Okay plot, but the execution here just stinks. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis's acting's probably the best on here. Everyone else's is not that great. The story would have been okay as a premise, but it just doesn't really work at all. And I feel like I might have started to watch this back in the day, and it was even when I was 11, it was too bad for me to watch. 1980 movie, it was probably on HBO in 81. Fair at best. I barely got through it. I would say don't even bother with 1980's Prom Night. Now, another one that Tubi led me into after watching Shockwaves was a movie called The Children from 1980. I never heard of this one, or maybe I did 40 years ago, you know. A school bus goes through this sort of cloud that happens after a radioactive leak, and we get these busload of zombie children basically afterwards. So as a zombie fan, it's kind of worth watching, but overall it's nothing great really in any facet. It's not great production. The effects are okay, but not that good. So I'd say no good on The Children. If you're a zombie fan, maybe worth a watch. Channel like Tubi that's free. Another one from Tubi, The Burning from 1981. Now this one, I remember the name, but didn't remember watching this movie. Summer camp caretaker gets burned and disfigured in a prank gone wrong by a handful of the campers, who returns, somehow survives, and then returns a few years later, getting revenge. Not the most original plot line, but some creative kills and gore for sure. I would say this is worth a watch for horror fans. I was a little surprised at how good this movie is that I really barely ever heard of. Another one from 81, Don't Go in the Woods. You can see at this point Tubi's leading me into other movies. Same style, which I have to say I like that about Tubi. You know, I have HBO and Netflix and stuff. They don't really recommend, when you finish a movie, they'll try to point you towards something else like that movie you just watched. But 3 days later, they don't really remember what you watched last and recommend anything. Or maybe they do, but it's never really something that works for me. Tubi really takes you to the next step in whatever you just watched. They do a good job with that. So Don't Go in the Woods. You know, I never realized how many Friday the 13th clones there were until this summer watching Tubi. All right, there's some good jump scares in this one. It's not a horrible movie. The acting's not that good, though, at all. Nothing really incredible, but decent gore. Old school, Dawn of the Dead, almost orange fake blood here. Kind of reminds me, I have to admit. As much as I love Dawn of the Dead, that blood was pretty orange, fakey looking. Decent, low-budget horror movie. For slasher fans, worth a watch. Overall, though, not really that great. Don't Go in the Woods. Scream, not to be confused with the 90s franchise, obviously. These rafters who stop the camp for the night start getting whacked. Typical early 80s slasher gore here. There are some pretty cool, interesting kills in this one, too, though. But so I would say if you're into that kind of movie, this was worth watching. Interesting one. John A. Russo's Midnight. Really campy, low budget. I mean, really low budget. But it sort of has a cult following. All right, not to be confused with another movie called Midnight. John Amplas, who played Martin, and also had a role in Dawn of the Dead from both George Romero films there. It's like I said, a very low-key, lo-fi sort of production, really C movie, forget B movie. And yet somehow it's somewhat engrossing. Like, you don't want to stop watching it. As much as you want to reach for that clicker and turn it off, you kind of can't. Some of the sort of long shots you get where there's really minimal edits give the scenes this real sort of creepy, plausible feel. And the same thing can be said for some of the sets. Rather than, rent a house and ransack it to make it look like it's a shithole, it looks like they found a real true shithole house to put this one scene in. And it's so low budget, it kind of almost works. I wouldn't say it does. I would say horror fans need to see this one. Just give it a watch. I'm not saying you're going to like it, because I'm still not sure if I liked it, honestly. And there's a sequel that exists to this too, but I haven't caught that one yet. But that's John A. Russo's Midnight. Sleepaway Camp from '83. first of the camping horror movies that I started watching on Tubi that led me to some of those others we just talked about. Now this one I really enjoyed, and I'm kind of surprised. The plot is based around this girl, Angela, who's being bullied by the other campers. Campers start turning up dead, disappearing. Sort of bare bones production, average acting, but what really stood out for this flick for me, the filming and editing was more of like a 1960s or early 70s style. It just didn't fit the mold of like 80s slasher. It's kind of a throwback style of filming and directing, I guess, and a real unique feel that sets it apart from other slasher films. And I kind of really enjoyed that. It was kind of bizarre watching this movie that looks like it was shot in the 60s, but it's actually the early 80s, and a surprise, strange ending. Sleepaway Camp's a definite watch for horror fans. And I don't say that about a lot of these types of slasher films. A lot of them are just sort of the same as each other. This one stood out. 1985's Demons. This is a Dario Argento production, Italian horror film master, directed by horror, sci-fi, another master at that genre, Lamberto Bava. So the usual Dario Argento experience here, and I've only started watching his movies the last year or two. Voices and sound overall, they really sort of sound this distorted and they almost don't match the mouth. Thought that might have been the first couple movies I watched of his, and now I can see that's sort of his style. And really good acting too. I think that probably goes unnoticed and gets lost in the shuffle with his movies of all the extreme makeup effects, gore. And that's what's a highlight about all of his movies from this era. All right, old school makeup, gore, really pretty cool if you're into that. And the actors do a great job of making these otherwise unrealistic scenes seem real, And the plot is always kind of besides the point when it comes to Dario Argento movies. It's classic old school horror and gore effects that make this one worth watching, and for a true horror fan, it's worth owning. Fright Night from 1985. Now, I haven't seen this one since it was on HBO. It was around 86, I'm guessing. Really good horror thriller. Teen suspects that his next door neighbor is a vampire. I don't think I'm giving anything away by telling you that much. Not too gory, but when it is, it really is not sheepish on effects. And it's a really good watch all the way through. Roddy McDowall with a little small role in it. Definitely worth watching. Fright Night from 85. So Sleepaway Camp from 83, I really enjoyed that. I told you that. So I ended up watching Sleepaway Camp 2, which isn't until 1988. Unhappy Campers, again on Tubi. Filmed at the same location, but that's kind of where the connection to the first movie ends. Although Angela, the sort of bullied teen or young teen in the first movie, returns, but it's a different actress playing her, and it's Pamela Springsteen, who is Bruce Springsteen's, I think, older sister. As opposed to the more serious original, this one's more a little bit in the comedy horror sort of vein. So some creative murders still though. So maybe if you're a total gore fan and slasher fan, you'd still like this one. I guess it's worth a watch if it's free, all right? I have to admit. But just watch it once. I think it's worth watching once. Tommy Boy from 1995. I have this on DVD with Black Sheep. This is a classic, and I haven't seen this in about a decade. It's sort of a road flick, I guess you'd call it, but multiple hysterical scenes in this movie that are just classic. I mean, housekeeping, just some of these things just stick with you forever. That scene where they're driving in the car and listening to the Carpenters. Great, man. Now, my wife had never seen it. It was her first time seeing it. She really liked it. I had at least 8 or 10 or maybe a dozen good belly laughs watching this. And it had been a long time. I forgot a lot of the other parts of the movie. So Tommy Boy's I think it's worth owning if you can watch it every 10 years or so and like it. Or nowadays, you stream everything anyway. So now that rolled us into High Fidelity. John Cusack and Jack Black from 2000. Comedy or romantic comedy, however you want to look at it. This was my wife's recommendation. I had never seen this movie somehow. I think we even have the soundtrack on double vinyl. And they work at a record store, so that part of it was cool. You get constant music and band references all the way up to 2000. So classic rock stuff on up to the modern music of the 90s and stuff. That kept it interesting for me. Jack Black has a couple funny parts. But overall, it's just okay to me, nothing special. So I'm going to say no good. but you could definitely do worse in the romantic comedy era than High Fidelity. 2008 Gran Torino, Clint Eastwood. You know, I thought I might have seen this. I threw it on. I was kind of hungover, I think, just watching something on the couch. Sort of your moderate level drama. Clint in his old grumpy, there's got to be a heart in there somewhere role. Seems to be what he does these days. It's a decent watch for being hungover. About halfway through, I realized I had already seen this before, I guess when it first came out. So it's worth a watch. It's okay, but nothing special. 2012, Outpost, Black Sun, Tubi, horror, Nazi zombie genre sent me here. All right. Old Nazi scientist releases a legion of Nazis in the modern age to be the Fourth Reich of Nazism, okay? Special ops infiltrates the lab, hoping to somehow prevent any more of this force from being unleashed because they're almost unstoppable. Lots of action. The Nazi zombies look really cool, but it's all CGI, so you only get quick looks at them and so forth. So I'm going to say no good on this one. It's more of an action movie than a horror zombie movie. And I only got about 3/4 of the way through. You can see where it was just the same movie the whole time. Lots of shooting, lots of zombies getting shot and not stopping. Occasionally they get slowed down. It's okay. I'm not going to say it sucks, but you don't need to see that one. It totally lacks any character development at all. So it's just really an action movie. Outpost, Black Sun. 2013, Frankenstein's Army. All right, I can't resist a title like that. And it's a Nazi zombie sort of style thing, I guess, in a way. It uses this found footage point of view. It's supposed to be the Russians chasing the Nazis out of Russia at the end of World War II. They're in some forest. They find this German lab in the bunker or underneath a church, I think, something like that. And here, eventually, after they're down there for a little while, these sort of grotesque, part man, part machine, Nazi killing machines start popping out of the woodwork and attacking them. Just no going in. The found footage angle about this is completely ridiculous, but also completely pointless. Like, it probably would have been a better movie without that, if you want to call it an angle. All right. The creatures are not CGI, though. All this makeup looks to me to be old school makeup effects. That part of it's pretty cool. Very realistic gore also. Not when we're talking about monsters, just the gore of, like, say, a severed arm laying around. Stuff looks really good, really real. There's no real plot here, but I think just no going in that it's really just, this is one of these sort of popcorn movies, all right? You're not looking for a serious plot line. The acting's okay, but it's not that great. But you know what? I wouldn't watch it again anytime soon, but it was kind of fun watching it once. Fun horror movie, I guess, with really good gore effects. And kind of a cool, some of these half man, half machine sort of beings are pretty cool looking, you know, if they're kind of stupid, but also kind of cool at the same time. Next up, 2015's Mad Max Fury Road with Charlize Theron. I saw this back when this first came out on HBO, and I was really looking forward to it because The Road Warrior is one of my favorite movies of all time. But I was really disappointed in this at the time, 2015, okay? Not sure I gave it my full attention, honestly. Once it got started, I saw that it was a CGI fest. It just didn't do it for me at all. But it came back on HBO, or maybe it'd been there the whole time, and ahead of watching the 2024 Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, I figured I'd give it a second try. This is a couple months back. And, you know, it's 9 years later, so I think maybe me and a lot of us are more accepting of CGI at this point. I really freaking enjoyed this movie. A lot. I mean, it's nonstop action. I guess, like I said, I'm just over the hump with the fact that it's going to just be all CGI. But, man, there's still a great amount of violence in there. Nonstop action. No Road Warrior, but considering it's 32 years later and it's no CGI, what do you expect? So this is just how things are done. We'll talk about Furiosa in a bit, but I think Mad Max Fury Road is actually worth owning. You know, it's Blu-ray could probably make this look amazing. 2016, Terrifier. I don't know how this one escaped me. I heard of it a lot. I see people with it on their jackets and things at these expos I go to. And it's an indie slasher film by Damien Leone, who wrote, directed, and produced it. Follows his character Art the Clown, who I think he's already done some short films with. Really good slasher film. It seems low budget, like just by watching it, like the film quality actually looks grainy, which I thought was just done on purpose to make it look sort of low budget, but that's actually what it was shot on, a budget of $35,000 to $55,000. So it is a little grainy, but really well acted, very creepy, very well shot and edited and everything. You get a little of everything from the horror genre in this movie. Some jump scares, some real long creepy scenes where nothing really happens, but that's really what makes them creepy. Good point of view scenes, person's in a locker hiding, just looking through a peephole. Great mix of all the elements of what make a great horror movie up. This is a definite watch, and I would say if you want to own it, go right the hell ahead. Damn good movie, Terrifier 2016. Also from 2016, The Shallows. I think, was it Lounge Dweller recommended this one? I love movies where the main character's in a survivalist situation. So this fits that, and of course it's the awesomely hot Blake Lively. She's a surfer who finds this sort of secret ultimate surfing cove for awesome waves. She's on vacation, but makes her way to this cove with a guide and so forth. Gets caught out surfing after some other people leave and she's alone. There's a shark in the area and she can't get back to the beach, so she ends up stranded on some rocks, also on this buoy nearby. Whole survivalist thing is pretty good. It's a really good thriller. I really enjoyed watching the movie. It's a definite watch. I just thought the CGI was a little over the top. They just give you some overhead shots of the shark being close enough to get her, and she still has to go 15 feet to the buoy, and somehow she outswims the shark, you know. So just a little of that was a little too over the top for me. I wish they would have just made it a little more plausible when they did stuff like that. But otherwise, it's a great action movie. Fits that category of protagonist in a survivalist situation. Movies that I love. So I would say good watch. On to 2018, The Mule. This is another recent Clint Eastwood directed and starred in movie. This one, though, is based on a true story. An older drug mule who counts on his age to be his sort of his disguise, you know. And Leo Sharp is the man that actually was, this movie was made after, a World War II vet who in his 80s decided to, you know, somehow got involved in transporting, I think, cocaine for a cartel. It's a somewhat engaging movie, but, you know, I would say sort of benign overall feel to it. You never really sense that there's a whole lot of danger at hand. You know, you got the angle of what he's doing is wrong, but he's doing it for the right reasons. The movie starts by building the possibility that the cartel may be as much of a threat to Leo as getting caught. You know, I think he takes his own route to the destination, which wasn't the planned route. And when they meet him there, they basically threaten his life. Like, if you ever go off script again, you're done. That's there in the beginning of the movie, and that kind of goes away. And I feel like if the movie would have held on to that danger at either end kind of angle, it would have been a great movie. Instead, it's just an okay movie. Worth a watch, though. This was another one, just laying around, nothing to do. Wasn't in the mood for horror. Little light drama, The Mule with Clint Eastwood from 2018. Worth a watch. Here's a cool one from 2021 called The Beta Test on Hulu. This is a Vanishing Angle production. They were involved in Queens of the Dead, I'll be telling you about. They had a $250,000 budget on this movie, and man, it looks great. If you would have told me this movie cost $20 million, I would have believed you. Now, this plot has awesome potential. Very timely, we can all relate to this. Basically targeting certain people based on all their internet history, all the things they liked, porn habits, everything, all right? And then putting them into situations that they basically can't resist and then blackmailing them. Really interesting sort of plot, right? And it's good. It's a good movie. Could have easily been great, except for a couple of things. Lead actor Jim Cummings, who was also a writer in this, is just an annoying tool in this movie. You kind of don't like him, so you don't feel for him, and you don't care what happens to him, but you still want to know what's at the bottom of what's happening in the movie. So you end up watching the whole thing anyway. It's still very compelling. The plot also takes on some unnecessary sort of subplots. I don't think really add to the movie much. But overall, this thing is really good, and it's one of those movies that keeps you kind of thinking later on after you've already watched it about it. And, you know, if had it been sort of like maybe like a Vince Vaughn or a Brad Pitt in this lead role, I think we'd be talking about a smash hit movie. Would have really kept you interested. Just that lead actor's so annoying. You just kind of don't care nearly as much as you should about this main guy in this one. The Beta Test, really good one on Hulu. 2023 Zone of Interest on Netflix. This one really I really like this movie. Highly recommend this one. Completely different angle on the Nazi German atrocities of the Holocaust, where most of those films, show more gratuitous, sort of horrific, shocking version of all those events. This movie kind of low-keys it by centering on the household of one of the Auschwitz commanders whose family lives just outside the wall of Auschwitz in this big house. And you really just spend a lot of time with the family and family life there. And you get these occasional little sort of subdued scenes, where they're so horrific in their sort of subtlety. There's a meeting with this commander and some other scientists, I guess, and they're the unfeeling in the room as they're discussing more efficient ways to gas people to death. There's just no humanity in these people at all. It's just, wow, There's a large train station depot, room just filled almost to the ceiling with shoes, and you just see someone sweeping the floor next to it like it's nothing. Just thousands of shoes, like little scenes like that, There's a Jewish teen or maybe, 20-year-old. She's the housemaid for this commander. You see her during the movie in different points, just walking around cleaning, cooking, whatever. And then one day the wife's in a bad mood and threatens to gas her, just like things like that. Just, wow. There's this sort of quiet, tranquil movie overall. Makes its point with sort of artistic fashion, These dozen or so scenes that'll sit with you for a long time afterwards. And I almost feel like there was no music in this movie. I'm trying to think back, was there any music at all? And I think that's what made it so also kind of realistic, You walk into a horrific scene in real life, there's no music playing, there's no dramatic music to emphasize the point. It's, I think that's how this movie is. And now there might have been some occasional stuff over these just occasional scenes where there's no acting going on or just sort of scenes. But I don't remember any music. I think that really helps make the point and brings it home that it's, this was reality, for all those years. And there are just these subtle little things that happen within this movie here and there. Just take a few seconds. Those scenes are the ones with the most lasting impact, I would have to say this movie is excellent. Really took me by surprise. Zone of Interest on Netflix. Now another Tubi movie. This one's newer, 2024, Lovely, Dark, and Deep. It was a popular book first. Interesting and creepy enough story follows a new park ranger. She's assigned to an area where people have gone missing over the years in this national park, I should say. Very good and eerie enough for a good half or maybe 2/3 of the movie. Then you just start wondering where the hell this thing's going. And by about 3/4 of the way through the movie, you sort of figure it out. And it's kind of cool, if not very original. Not great, but not bad. It's worth a watch. Lovely, Dark, and Deep. Now, 2024's Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, HBO. More of the same we got with Fury Road. Lots of action, lots of violence, lots of CGI. All right, just how it goes. Little to do, or really nothing to do with the original two films, all right? But, we're in the wasteland, and this is just life beyond that. So I totally loved it, I have to say. This is another one I'd say it's worth owning. Road Warrior will always be my favorite of the original two, but it's just fun, action, violence, all in Mad Max tradition, really. Kind of like Road Warrior, fuel tanker being chased, so kind of really related to Road Warrior in a lot of ways. Surely be an awesome Blu-ray. Highly recommend Furiosa, Mad Max Saga. Definitely watch it and probably own it. All right. Next up, just came out in 2024. It's already on Hulu. Immaculate, this Midwestern American nun who's invited to an Italian convent that basically takes care of dying nuns, is sort of the center of the story here. The plot is so ambitious, guys, that I actually missed the damn gist of the plot until reading about it afterwards. And I actually went back and rewatched the end of the movie. See if if it really mattered a whole lot. Not really, but it does sort of make it a little more, makes it make a little more sense, I guess you'd say. But she's a virgin when she's at this convent and gets pregnant while she's there. All kinds of mixed emotions about that, people's feelings, you know. So it kind of leads to a lot of violence and so forth. It's pretty good. I can't give too much away, though, without giving the movie away, so I can't say too much. Overall, a good but not great thriller horror movie. Worth a watch if you have Hulu. I wouldn't go out of my way to rent it or anything, but Immaculate was decent. Last up of the 27 movies I watched this summer, 2024's Festival of the Living Dead, a Tubi original. Hey, I like zombies. Tubi was good to me all summer. Let me check out their original movie. Pretty cool plot or basis for this one. Years after an actual zombie holocaust happens and is over, there's a music festival to honor the dead, and that's the setting. And some teens, young adults, arrive to this festival, and a new outbreak is going on. I don't think it's ever even explained, it just is. The gore and the zombies look pretty good, but this is just a real copycat, jump on the zombie bandwagon feel to this. No heart or soul, and no good on that one. Sorry, Tubi. Didn't really enjoy that one at all. Guys, that's it. 27 movies. Here are the 7 I highly recommend to you. 1983's Sleepaway Camp. You know, yeah, it's slasher, film, horror, but it's kind of shot in a 1960s style. It's kind of interesting. I liked it. 1985's Demons, Dario Argento. If you haven't seen any of his horror movies, this is as good as anyone to start with. First time I saw it this summer, it was really pretty good. Just really a horror gore fest, all right? No real plot here or anything. Fright Night from 85, mostly just a suspense thriller, little bit of gore and stuff in there too at the end. And when it is there, it is pretty good. 2015's Mad Max Fury Road, loved it. Didn't like it the first time, loved it this time. Terrifier from 2016, that was a great one. Really cool, low budget film, but really, really well made. 2023's Zone of Interest on Netflix, just a totally different way to tell the Nazi story, and just great acting, nicely shot, very good movie, really surprised me. And finally, 2024's Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. That was also an awesome action thriller. There's my 7 recommendations out of those 27, all right? Now, something that just began a few days ago, actually. And there were sort of pre-orders out there for the whole summer. And I never pre-ordered it myself because I could never really get a damn handle on what the hell it was. It's The Thing Expanded, sort of ultimate fan-involved documentary. It's going to be launched pretty soon, I assume. All right, I'm still fuzzy on details, even trying to find them out. It's a year-long deep dive with multiple online events exploring John Carpenter's 1982, what I consider horror masterpiece. That and Dawn of the Dead are my 2 favorite movies. Pre-orders ended September 2nd. There was a few different options for what you would get out of it. Multiple options. DVD versus Blu-ray, all kinds of posters and swag. I forget at this point what the options were. All right, I assume the online content is going to be on these DVDs or Blu-rays, but that's just some of the info that I wasn't really clear on when I was considering ordering this, because it started at $100 on up. So I never ordered it because I could never really nail down what the hell you were getting for the money. Access to some of these online events that others wouldn't have. I got that much, but there was never a clear list of what these online events were going to be. Very vague, and I didn't think it was a good rollout, honestly. But maybe I just didn't dig deep enough. At the center of it all is a brand new interview with John Carpenter. That's sort of at the core of the event, all right? So, like I said, started at $99 on up, and I wasn't aware that pre-ordering it was the only way to get it. You know, like that's how it appears at this point. Because I'm trying to order it now, and you can't order it now. It's like the pre-order is closed, but I'm not finding any information about when the actual regular orders can be placed. So if you guys know any more, let me know, because I would love to know. You know, and I should have just spent the $99, I guess, a couple months ago when I first saw this. But just so you know, that's hanging out there if you're not already interested in that. They already did one of these deep dives with aliens, I think, a few years ago. So the company that's handling this has already done this for one or two other movies. So if I get any more info, I'll pass it along. All right, one other thing I did watch a little bit. Every once in a while, it's just fun to throw these on. There's a whole bunch of these episodes on here. I don't even know how many, but they're not even listed. It's a 2 CD set or DVD set, but I throw that on when I'm doing like some housework once in a while. It's good old schoolhouse rock. All right, so Queens of the Dead. Let me tell you what it was like, man. This is going to supposedly come out 2025. George Romero, who produced and partially wrote some of these movies, Night of the Living Dead in 68, Dawn of the Dead in 78, Martin from 77, The Crazies from 73. He was involved in Creepshow, the original, in 82, Tales from the Dark Side series, 83 to 88. His daughter, Tina Romero. She's done various short films. She's directed like some music videos, also written some short stories. This is her directorial debut on a feature film, Queens of the Dead, all right? So she's never done anything in the zombie horror realm before. She's stated that she always wanted to wait for the right sort of scenario to come up for her to make sense for her to want to do it. So that is now, okay? Tina lives in Brooklyn. That's where this movie takes place. The premise, best I can gather, and continuing with her dad, sort of, there's a bigger lesson at hand here. There's a nightclub for drag queens in Brooklyn. It's elevated. It's like several stories above ground level. And they're partying all night. And when the party's over, they realize that the zombie apocalypse started while they were dancing the night away, all right? And they're trapped. So there's a straight club, regular club, also partying nearby. They're in the same predicament. It's 2 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever the hell. And I guess they're able to communicate with each other even though they're in different buildings. All right, so they have to sort of work together, get their asses out of these clubs. So you could easily see the message here, right? People working together, all right? LGBTQ, whatever, and straight people have to work together to get out of this dilemma. So just like Dad's, sort of racism message in Night of the Living Dead, the whole consumerism message in Dawn of the Dead, you get another sort of timely commentary, social commentary as an undercurrent to this otherwise action horror movie. So there was a Dawn of the Dead page, social media page that I follow. Somebody put a link that they were looking for volunteers for this to be part of the zombie horde. Put my name in the hat and they emailed me. What can I say? I mean, I guess they saw this gorgeous face and they couldn't resist. All right, and well, we'll throw some makeup on it and then we can't resist. So, Paterson, New Jersey, 100 miles away from me. So that's where they were shooting this movie. This was the end of July. It was supposed to be from 11:30 till 5, so almost midnight till 5 a.m. Then we got an email. It was going to just be 1:30 in the morning to 5 a.m. So it took like a 45-minute nap from like 9 to 10 o'clock, And then I had to schlep on up there and caught up with someone who I had met at Living Dead Weekend out in Pittsburgh or Monroeville. Michelle, she was actually involved with GARF, that's the George A. Romero Foundation. So she was actually coordinating the extras here. So it was cool. I got to see her. I haven't seen her in over 2 years. All right. So we really just stood around from 1:30 till about 5 in the morning. Man, it's hard standing around, even with 40 or 50 other fellow horror zombie fans. It's a little, when you're awake, other than that 45-minute nap, awake for 18 hours, hard to strike up conversation. But it was kind of cool. They were shooting the movie in the building right next to where we were waiting. Sort of industrial park area. This brick building is where they were shooting the movie. So it was kind of cool. We had to be quiet at certain times, see the action. Some of it spilled out into the street, into the parking lot where we were waiting. So it's kind of pretty fun and a pretty cool situation. Also, they were shooting the movie in a nearby alley. So I took this one picture here. You can see the effects and smoke rising from up over that alley. And then eventually, at 5 a.m., they finally take us to that alley and start reshooting. It was really kind of cool. There's a whole movie set up there. We got to see them shoot a scene with the main actors that we weren't involved in, which was kind of cool. So that'll be fun to go back and watch this movie and see if they use those actual scenes where we were just standing right on the side, you know. And then they did 2 different scenes with us. And I think at some point the zombies were walking one way, we're walking one way, and we get distracted. Or we're milling around, and then we get distracted and supposedly all start walking towards one direction. They did 2 takes of it. It was pretty cool. They told us to come in makeup. So this was my best cheap Halloween makeup that I could find, you know. I had to find it in my garage with my Halloween decorations. And luckily I had it, because the original message was you didn't need to do your own makeup. And then at the last minute, the very last message was come in makeup. So threw this on. It doesn't look that great, but anyway, it was really fun. It was just a really fun experience, and I have to tell you, it was such a boring time, even though I was seeing someone I haven't seen in a while, and, you know, hanging around with all those people. Man, when it's the damn middle of the night, it's just boring, you know, standing around. But once just getting those 2 shots, the whole filming might have took a half hour tops, not even, and really made it worth it, driving home. Tough ride home. Man, I was tired as hell. 2-hour ride. But it was really cool. So look out for Queens of the Dead. Should be in the credits, and I can't wait to watch the movie to see if I'm actually in it. And see this movie, too. You know, I'm always up for Romero-related zombie action. So, guys, that's it. That's our summer movie wrap-up. 27 that I watched, spanning 40 years. Gave you the 7 that I highly recommend. That goes without saying on movies like Jaws, all right? Stuff like that. The other 7 out of those other 26, all right? Guys, I'll be catching your asses later. Time for another shore break or whatever have you. Catch us all later.